Thank you, Pastor Robin. So in 1989, I was finishing my bachelor's degree at UMass Amherst in outdoor recreation and park administration. As part of the degree requirements, we were required to do a full semester internship full-time in an organization that would suit our needs. My sister and her family lived right outside of Atlanta, and Atlanta at the time was vying for the Olympics. So I contacted the Atlanta Department of Parks and Recreation, and I was able to set up an internship for that spring semester. I would be working for the program department, helping to develop and run various park and rec programs throughout the city. So I packed up my Datsun B210 with all my worldly possessions, and I headed south. I'd be living with my sister and her husband and their 3 young children for 6 months or so during my internship. I arrived in Atlanta full of excitement and full of anticipation. And the internship was everything I expected it to be. I worked with great people who were dedicated, warm, funny, and I was surrounded by the buzz of the city preparing for the bid for the Olympics. It was an exciting and very heady time to be there. Once the internship ended, I decided to stay in Atlanta permanently. I rented a small house on the south side and set out to start a new career. I applied to all the local park and rec departments, sure I would find an appropriate position within a reasonable amount of time. Nothing. Okay, maybe I should branch out a bit and look at more traditional jobs, whatever that means. Nothing. Okay, well maybe I can find a job in a restaurant or even in the fast food industry to tide me over until my dream job comes along. Again, nothing. By this time, life had become very difficult for me. I couldn't pay my rent, my car was falling apart, and I didn't have 2 cents for groceries. On top of it all, I was lonely. Not just lonely, but the kind of loneliness that settles into the deepest recesses of your soul. The kind of loneliness that makes it difficult to get out of bed in the morning. The kind of loneliness that makes you wonder, how am I going to continue to take the next step and face the next day? I wound up working for a temp agency, sweeping sidewalks in an apartment complex, checking in people at the convention center, scheduling appointments for a crazy chiropractor, whatever work the agency had for me, making about $5 an hour. Earlier that spring, a dear friend of mine came for a visit from Boston. I was absolutely thrilled that she was coming. It was a diversion from the misery my life had become, and I needed the comfort of a good friend. I drove my barely moving, broken down car to the airport, picked her up, went back to my house to unload her stuff, and we headed out to Denny's for breakfast. When we returned from Denny's, we found the front door of my house had been broken into, all of her luggage and all of her clothes had been stolen, and every bit of food in my refrigerator and freezer was gone. On top of it, while we were out, the electric company came and shut my power off for not paying the bill. Those moments were some of the lowest, darkest moments in my life. With her help, I was able to get the power turned back on, go to Home Depot, get a new front door, and buy some food. The day she left, I felt so desolate and so alone. At that moment in my life, I finally understood how people can get to the point where they can't go on. I was there. That evening, as I was getting ready for bed and opened the medicine cabinet to pull out the toothpaste, there were 5 crisp $20 bills lined up on the shelf in the medicine cabinet with a sticky note that said, "You can do this." When I saw those 20s and that note, I sat at the end of the bathtub and I remember so clearly sobbing. I realized how close I had come to doing something that would be regrettable. I realized that life was not that bad. I realized I had friends and family that loved me. Although my friend is no longer with us, she was the light that crept through my planks. It was her light that illuminated my soul and let me know that everything would be okay. Thank you.